let's jump right into this explainer, and honestly, we are going to transport ourselves back to a much simpler time. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating memoir straight out of late 20th century rural Maharashtra. It's a source text that just beautifully captures the pure innocence of childhood, and it heavily contrasts the educational experience of the past with the incredibly fast-paced, metrics-driven world we all live in today. We're talking about a barefoot journey, a tiny village school, and a single day that meant absolutely everything to the kids who lived it. Now, this core idea from the text, that happiness was not measured in marks, it really instantly anchors us to the emotional heart of this memory. I mean, think about it. We are actively stepping far, far away from today's obsession with percentages, GPAs, and constant ranking, and we're entering a world where joy was just profoundly simple, and more importantly, it was collective. So conventionally, all across the state, the 1st of May is Maharashtra Day. It's a massive state holiday commemorating the formation of Maharashtra itself. But for these village school children back in the 1990s, that date took on a totally different meaning. To them, it was simply Result Day. It's actually incredibly fascinating to see how a grand historical state event was experienced entirely through the super specific, highly anxious lens of a barefoot kid just waiting to hear if they pass their exams.
All right, let's get into section 1, A Morning of Memories.
The author vividly recalls waking up at 5 a.m. But the detail that really stands out here is how they woke up. It wasn't to some jarring smartphone alarm or a buzzing digital clock. Nope. It was the cool morning breeze, birds singing, and a mother's soft call. They were waking up to this really potent mix of pure, unfiltered excitement and, just a little bit of that classic universal student fear of getting your results. And getting ready meant putting on an incredibly basic uniform. We're talking a simple half-white shirt and half-brown pant. But the absolute most crucial detail from the source here, bare feet. There were no running shoes, no protective boots, honestly, not even basic slippers, just bare feet, eagerly getting ready for a really long, arduous walk to find out their academic fate.
Which brings us right into section 2, The Barefoot Journey.
This physical journey is pretty much the hero's road of trials for our explainer today. So around 5:30 a.m., the student gathers with all the other kids from their vasti or settlement, and then for well over an hour, they navigate this incredibly rough, stony, dusty 5-kilometer path. Just imagine this for a second. At 7:30 in the morning, they aren't complaining about missing the school bus. They are literally stopping to pull thorns out of their bare feet, wipe away the blood, and just keep on walking. They endured this grueling physical trek together simply because the destination mattered that much to them. And during that painful walk, the psychological tension was just as sharp as the stones on the road. Will I pass? Will teacher scold me? This constant anxious chatter and second guessing totally filled the morning air. It wasn't just some silent, miserable trudge. It was a highly social collective buildup of nervous energy for what was waiting for them at the school gates. Moving on to section 3, the village school. So, what did this school actually look like? Well, the source paints a picture of a visually very simple, really grounded space. It was a local Zillaparat Shad's school, handling kids from the 1st all the way up to the 7th grade. It had mud walls, a tiled roof, completely unpretentious, literally built from the earth. And right there in the courtyard, anchoring the entire scene, stood a proud, massive neem tree. And it was exactly under the shade of this tree that the day's biggest moments would unfold. But look, before any results were even announced, they had to get through a formal, patriotic gathering. First up, the headmaster hoists the Indian tricolor flag. Next, all these barefoot students stand in neat little lines and sing the national anthem. And finally, a speech is given about the formation of Maharashtra, tying everything back to that 1st May holiday. The author points out that as little kids, they didn't really grasp all the dense political history being talked about, but they absolutely felt a deeply unifying sense of pride just being part of the whole thing. Okay, let's hit section 4, the simple result. Now we arrive at the climax of the morning, a completely silent, incredibly nervous gathering right in front of the teacher. Just imagine the dramatic pause here, right? The flag hoisting is done, the long speeches are over, every single student is absolutely dead silent, staring up at their teacher, just waiting for the final verdict on an entire year of their lives. The tension is literally palpable. And the true power of this moment, it's in how brief it is. The teacher looks at this crowd of terrified kids and says just one thing. All students have passed. Boom. With that single, beautifully simple sentence, the immense tension completely evaporates into thin air. There's no dramatic opening of envelopes, no calling out individuals one by one, just a sweeping declaration of collective success. As you'd expect, the immediate fallout of that announcement was an absolute explosion of pure joy. Clapping, shouting, kids jumping in the air with uncontainable happiness. But what's really remarkable here is what was missing. No marks, no ranks. The children were completely unburdened by who came in first or who got second place. The joy wasn't competitive, it was entirely pure and shared by everyone.
And that brings us to Section 5, Education as a Journey.
Right after the grand announcement, the teachers, who, by the way, the source notes were deeply respected as community guardians, they handed out these incredibly simple sweets. But to these kids, oh man, they tasted like absolute success. The author beautifully reflects that eating those sweets made that brutal 5-kilometer walk back home feel remarkably lighter, happier, and totally painless, even with all the cuts and thorns from that morning. The ultimate validation, though, happened when they finally reached home. They look at their parents and just say 2 words, "I passed." And that was it. That was entirely enough to make their parents incredibly proud. No parent asked for a percentage breakdown. No one demanded to see a detailed printed mark sheet so they could compare it with a neighbor's kid. Simply passing the grade was the ultimate achievement. And this perfectly captures the core contrast of the entire memoir. In that 1990s rural ethos, passing was enough. Education was viewed holistically, as a journey that resulted in simple, unadulterated joy. Now compare that to our modern ethos. Today, results are instantly refreshed online, percentages dictate your worth, and ranks are heavily scrutinized. It's a stark, powerful contrast between the perceived innocence of the past and today's hyper-competitive, metrics-driven world. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a provocative question to chew on. What is lost when we shift from simple learning to competitive ranking? It's a profound thought, right? Something to really reflect on when it comes to your own relationship with success, the intense pressures we place on modern students, and those simple, pure joys we might be leaving behind in our relentless race for the top. Thanks so much for diving into this amazing story with me today, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.